when your job is to protect children, and you don't do that job because you are lazy and you are heartless.
5-year-old A.J. Freund was reported missing from a home in such poor condition that even his pillow reflected the neglect. The bright, puzzle-loving little boy had been counting down the days until he could start kindergarten. But when investigators arrived, his own father couldn't produce a single photo of him, and his bedroom window was screwed shut from the outside. But the answers weren't found in the woods or the playgrounds. They were buried deep inside the family's own secrets. This is how the facade of a normal family began to crack. Andrew Freund Jr., known affectionately as AJ, was born on October 14, 2013. He was a cheerful, affectionate, and lively little boy with a laugh that could light up any room. AJ enjoyed spending time outdoors and playing with his younger brother, often wrestling and giggling together. He loved drawing, reading, and completing puzzles, taking pride in capturing a photo of each one he finished. He could spend hours focused on his favorite Lego sets, building and imagining new creations. AJ was especially excited to start kindergarten in the fall, eager to meet new friends and explore his world. From the very beginning, AJ's life faced difficulties, and he spent some time in protective care as adults around him worked to provide stability. His parents, Joanne Cunningham, 36, and Andrew Freund Sr., 60, were both navigating complex personal challenges at the time. Joanne and Andrew's paths first crossed in 2012 at the McHenry County Courthouse. Joanne was there for a divorce, and Andrew, an attorney, noticed her sitting alone and in distress. He approached to offer assistance. Joanne was navigating a difficult period in her life without legal support or stable employment, and facing personal challenges that made things especially complicated. Andrew's personal life had long been marked by struggles with prescription medication and alcohol. These battles placed enormous strain on his future as a lawyer, and at several points nearly cost him the profession he had worked so hard to enter. Yet despite these challenges, he managed to hold onto his license. By 2012, during a difficult chapter in Joanne's own life, Andrew stepped in to offer guidance, not only as an attorney, but as a source of comfort. What began as an unexpected encounter quickly turned into a relationship, though it was often clouded by unhealthy patterns and troubling behaviors. Only a year later, the couple welcomed their first child, a son they named Andrew Jr., or AJ. Their second child, Parker, was born in 2014, just 1 year after AJ. From the very beginning, however, parenthood proved to be an uphill journey. When AJ entered the world, doctors noted concerns, and the little boy was soon placed with foster care providers. The separation weighed heavily on Joanne and Andrew, marking a painful reminder of the consequences of their struggles. But before we begin, I just want to say thank you to my amazing viewers and subscribers. Your support through likes, shares, and comments means the world to me. Your engagement helps make these stories even more meaningful. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of true crime enthusiasts.
In the early months of 2014, both parents began the long process of rebuilding. They enrolled in treatment programs, submitted to regular screenings, attended counseling sessions, and took part in parenting classes. The road was not easy, but with time and persistence, there were signs of progress. By mid-2015, after over a year of documented effort and consistent visits with AJ, a family court judge determined that the couple had shown enough improvement. With cautious optimism, AJ was reunited with his parents, offering the family a new chance at stability and healing. By the end of 2018, tensions inside the household had reached a breaking point. Joanne and Andrew decided to part ways as a couple, but rather than establishing separate residences, they continued living together in the same home on Dole Avenue in Crystal Lake, Illinois. By the spring of 2019, Joanne was expecting another child with a different partner, a man who had briefly stayed in the house before facing his own legal difficulties. The complicated household dynamic placed further strain on an already fragile environment. On the morning of April 18, 2019, Andrew contacted authorities with deep concern. He explained that he could not find his 5-year-old son, AJ, and that the last time he recalled seeing him was the night before, when AJ was placed in bed around 9:30 p.m. During the call, Andrew's manner struck some listeners as unusually composed. He repeated himself often and described checking the house as well as looking around AJ's school, but still finding no sign of his child. News of AJ's disappearance prompted an immediate community response. Neighbors, officers, and volunteers began searching, hoping the little boy would soon be located. At the family home, investigators asked Andrew for a recent photograph of AJ to aid in the search. Strikingly, he was unable to provide one, telling officers he could not find any images of his son on his phone. Meanwhile, Joanne was observed speaking with her partner by phone, though investigators later noted that their conversation did not reference AJ's disappearance. Another detail left investigators unsettled. When asked about his son's appearance, Andrew initially gave the wrong description of AJ's eye color, later adjusting his response only after Joanne corrected him. For those conducting the search, these small but telling moments raised further concerns. They were reminders of the troubling disconnect between AJ's hopeful young life and the difficult circumstances unfolding around him.
The search for AJ quickly grew into one of the largest efforts Crystal Lake had seen in years. Officers, neighbors, and volunteers combed through parks, wooded areas, and nearby playgrounds. Boats were sent across the lake, and helicopters circled overhead, scanning the ground below. Community members checked their own backyards, garages, and sheds, hoping for any sign of the little boy. At just 5 years old, investigators had to consider every possibility, from the chance he had wandered off on his own to the troubling thought that someone else might have taken him. While the public focused on the search outside, investigators also examined the inside of the family's home. What they encountered raised serious concerns. Rooms were cluttered with clothing, trash, and items scattered across tables and furniture. Stains marked the carpets, and parts of the home showed signs of disrepair. Officers noted areas that appeared unsanitary and unsafe, including spaces that clearly were not being maintained in a way suitable for young children. When investigators entered AJ's room, they noted several concerning details. His bedding showed indications of activity, and there was hardware on the door that suggested it could be secured from the outside. The window had also been tightly fastened, something Andrew explained had been done after AJ once attempted to climb out. To officials, these discoveries painted a picture of an environment marked by stress and instability. More importantly, they raised difficult questions about what might have made such a young child feel the need to seek a way out of his own space. Before long, search dogs brought into the home pointed investigators toward a troubling realization. It appeared that AJ had never left the house on his own. This shifted the focus of the investigation toward those closest to him, his parents. Authorities were already aware that the family had prior contact with child welfare services, though earlier concerns had been classified as unfounded. Now, with AJ missing, those past reports were being reconsidered in a far more serious light. As detectives dug deeper, they reviewed Andrew's phone and found internet activity that immediately raised red flags. One search showed queries about child CPR, and another discovery involved a photograph of a handwritten shopping list. The list included everyday cleaning supplies, but also several items that seemed unusual given the context. It mentioned things such as tape, gloves, and air freshener. To investigators, the timing and combination of these items felt significant and difficult to ignore. When questioned, the couple offered their own explanations for the list. They claimed the tape was meant for hanging up pictures, and the large amount of bleach was simply used for household cleaning. Yet, given the state of the home, these explanations did not seem convincing. Detectives noted the inconsistencies and grew increasingly skeptical. For them, each new discovery pointed not toward a simple household routine, but toward a deeper, more unsettling story that was still waiting to be uncovered. Investigators learned that a late-night internet search for child CPR had been made from Andrew's phone. When asked, he suggested that Joanne may have been the one who searched, possibly in preparation for the new baby. But for detectives, the timing of such a search raised unsettling questions. It was one of many small details that began to form a picture that didn't quite match the parents' story. As they examined the home, officers noticed a strong chemical smell and several bottles of cleaning products scattered around. They also observed Andrew's gym shoes, still damp and marked with mud. To outsiders, these details may have seemed ordinary, but to investigators piecing together the truth, they stood out as signs that something was deeply wrong. In conversations with police, Andrew explained that Joanne often viewed AJ as unusually defiant for his young age. He recalled situations where simple actions, like the way AJ stacked clean dishes, were met with frustration. For those listening, it was heartbreaking to imagine such everyday childhood moments being treated as signs of defiance, rather than opportunities for guidance or patience. It spoke to a household under strain, where love was present but overshadowed by stress, instability, and misplaced expectations.
Faced with growing evidence and mounting pressure, Andrew and Joanne eventually admitted their role in what had happened. On April 24, 2019, both were taken into custody. Their confession confirmed investigators' worst fears. AJ had tragically not survived. For those following the case, the moment was devastating, as it shifted hope into heartbreak. In their statements, the couple described an incident that began with AJ being disciplined in a way that was far beyond appropriate for a child. Accounts revealed that he was left in a stressful and unsafe situation that night. When Joanne later checked on him, she realized something was terribly wrong. AJ was unresponsive, and despite any efforts that may have been considered afterward, he could not be revived. The following day, Andrew admitted that instead of reaching out to authorities, steps were taken to hide what had happened. In time, investigators determined that AJ had first been kept inside the home before later being moved elsewhere. Their search eventually led them to a quiet rural area near Woodstock, just a few miles from the family's residence, where AJ was sadly confirmed to have passed away. The news devastated the community. Friends, neighbors, and even those who had never met AJ expressed their sorrow for a little boy remembered as bright, playful, and full of promise. His passing was not only the loss of a child, but also a painful reminder of the importance of listening to early warning signs and ensuring safer environments for children. Following this, medical examiners reviewed the case in detail. Their findings suggested that AJ had endured unsafe conditions that ultimately cost him his life. They noted concerning patterns that pointed to a troubling environment, observations which later played an important role in court proceedings. For many, these details highlighted not only the fragility of AJ's short life, but also the broader responsibilities of those entrusted with child safety. The investigation also brought renewed focus to prior involvement from child welfare services. After AJ was returned to his parents in 2015, the family appeared to stay off the radar for some time. But on March 21, 2018, new concerns surfaced when a hospital social worker reported visible signs that something was not right. That same day, officers had discovered Joanne in a situation suggesting relapse, raising additional questions about the stability of the home. After several delays, child welfare investigators were finally able to meet with the family in late April of 2018. During that visit, the children appeared well-groomed, and no immediate concerns were identified. A follow-up visit took place on May 17, where the home was described as orderly, adequately furnished, and seemingly stable. With no pressing issues observed, the case was formally closed the following day. Just a few months later, in September, another call was made requesting a well-being check. A neighbor had noticed that the house appeared run down and had reportedly been without electricity for some time. When officers visited, Joanne declined to let them inside. However, through observation, they saw both AJ and his younger brother, who appeared cheerful and in good spirits. Law enforcement passed the information along to DCFS, but the agency chose not to reopen the case based solely on utility concerns. In Illinois, the loss of electricity in the fall can quickly become a serious issue as colder months approach. By December and January, families without consistent heat could be exposed to extremely harsh conditions. For many, this raised difficult questions about whether enough was done at that moment to ensure long-term safety and stability for the children. In December of 2018, authorities were again called to the family's home after Joanne reported a concern involving her boyfriend. When officers arrived, what stood out most to them was not the dispute itself, but the condition of the home. Reports described it as cluttered, in need of care, and showing signs of disrepair. During that same visit, they also noted a mark on AJ's hip, which was explained as an accident involving the family's large dog. As part of standard procedure, AJ was later brought to a medical professional for a checkup. In a private conversation, he expressed uncertainty about how the mark had appeared, offering hesitant answers that reflected confusion for someone his age. His words were concerning enough that the medical team made a report to Child Welfare Services. The agency reviewed the situation and ultimately determined that AJ could return home, provided his father was present in the household. Looking back, many would question whether more could have been done at that stage. For those who later learned of AJ's story, it became a reminder of how important timely intervention can be when children live in unstable or stressful environments.
The following day, child welfare officials returned without notice to evaluate the home again. This time, they documented that the household appeared more orderly and in better shape than it had during the earlier police visit. With those observations, and after several weeks of review, the case was formally closed on January 4, 2019. In the months following AJ's passing, investigators revisited the family's past and gathered memories from those who had lived nearby. Some neighbors described moments that, while confusing at the time, later seemed more concerning in hindsight. One woman recalled Halloween night in 2017, when AJ came to her door with protective coverings and ointment on his skin. Wanting to keep the interaction cheerful, she asked if he was dressed as a mummy. Joanne, however, explained that he had experienced an accident at home. That same neighbor also remembered a cold winter evening when she was out walking her dog. As she passed the family's driveway, she noticed AJ and his younger brother waiting inside a car with the engine running. When she asked what they were doing, the children mentioned they might be going to a motel because of disagreements between their parents. From where she stood, the neighbor could hear tension inside the home, and not long after, Joanne stepped outside and firmly asked her not to get others involved. One neighbor later shared that during a winter evening, she passed by the house and thought she heard a child's voice saying they felt cold. Investigators would eventually learn that she wasn't the only one with concerns. Others, including people in the community, staff at a local credit union, and even one of Andrew's co-workers, had also noticed indications that something was not right in the household. After Andrew and Joanne were taken into custody, investigators examined Joanne's phone and recovered a deleted recording. The video, which was never made public, appeared to capture her speaking harshly to AJ over a household issue. Records show this video was dated March 27, 2019. Only the audio portion was eventually released. In that recording, AJ's words reflected the deep emotional strain he was experiencing at home. He expressed a wish to be left alone, and even said he no longer felt like he had a family. Joanne's response in the recording was equally troubling, dismissing his feelings and questioning his place within the household. During questioning, Andrew told investigators that some of the troubling conduct captured in the recovered video had been carried out by Joanne. He admitted that her discipline could be harsh, and while he claimed to disagree with her actions, the alternatives he suggested showed a lack of true understanding of AJ's needs. He added that at times he tried to step in when situations escalated, though officials later noted that his efforts did not change the fact that AJ remained in an unsafe environment. When Joanne was later allowed to address the court, she offered a very different portrayal. She spoke about AJ as intelligent, handsome, and full of courage. She said that motherhood had given her purpose and that she missed her children deeply. She described AJ with admiration, calling him brilliant and loved, and expressed regret that she could not bring him back.
On July 17, 2020, Joanne Cunningham was sentenced to 35 years in prison. This came 7 months after she pled guilty to her role in AJ's tragic passing. Later that year, on September 18, 2020, Andrew Freund Sr. also entered a guilty plea to multiple charges connected to the case. He received a 30-year prison sentence and, as part of his plea agreement, was required to cooperate in the ongoing investigation involving DCFS. During this time, Joanne had given birth while incarcerated. The child's biological father had sought custody, but sadly passed away shortly afterward. As a result, the foster family who once cared for AJ as a baby stepped forward again, opening their home and hearts to his siblings. AJ's visitation drew an outpouring of love from the community. More than 5,000 people came to honor his memory, bringing flowers, balloons, and stuffed animals. Many wore blue, AJ's favorite color, and neighbors tied blue ribbons around trees across Crystal Lake as a tribute. In an uncommon step, charges were later brought against 2 DCFS workers connected to AJ's case. Supervisor Andrew Polovin and caseworker Carlos Acosta were accused of not handling their responsibilities properly. Prosecutors pursued actions against them, and while the legal process continues, many viewed this as a rare but important moment of accountability in seeking justice for AJ. According to the indictment, both men were accused of failing to properly protect AJ's well-being, which prosecutors argued contributed to his tragic passing. They each pleaded not guilty and requested separate jury trials. In September 2020, Acosta and Polovin were released from McHenry County Jail after posting bond. Investigators later noted that the case had been closed prematurely, with concerns attributed to an incident involving the family dog, even though AJ had previously shared worries during a medical visit. Following this, AJ's estate filed a lawsuit against both the caseworker and his supervisor, with the potential beneficiaries being AJ's siblings. In early 2020, the family's home was demolished by a Chicago company, Green Demolition, which volunteered to complete the work at no cost. The decision reflected the community's desire to remove the property and prevent it from serving as a painful reminder of the tragedy. Joanne Cunningham has since attempted to challenge her conviction, citing mental health struggles at the time. Legal experts note that these types of appeals are not uncommon, though the outcome remains uncertain. As AJ's story has been shared, many have reflected on the larger concerns it highlights, not only within the family environment, but also in the systems designed to protect children. While there has been accountability for some individuals involved, many believe broader reform is still needed to prevent future tragedies. When I first heard about AJ's story, what stood out to me was how many warning signs were there. But nothing was really done until it was too late. It's so sad to think that a child's safety can depend on how quickly people notice and take action. Stories like this show us why it's so important to pay attention and speak up when something feels wrong. AJ's case is heartbreaking, but it also reminds us that we need better systems to protect children. No family should ever slip through the cracks. I'd really like to hear what you think. Do you feel like justice was served in this case? Let me know in the comments. I always read what you write. And if you want to support this channel so I can keep sharing stories like AJ's, please make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share it with others who care about these cases.